welcome to Mad Women Media Podcast. Hi, welcome to Mad Women Media Podcast. Last week we did an introduction video just to get to know each other, get to know you guys, all that fun stuff. This week we're going to talk a little bit about controversial shows and why we are so intrigued into watching them, even if we know that they're wrong. So we're going to talk about Pam and Tommy this week, just because it's the most recent controversial show that has been put out onto, in Canada, Disney Plus. In the US, it was on Hulu that it was released. So yeah, I guess let's get on into that.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's see. Well, so what made Pam and Tommy controversial? Some people I talk to don't think that it was a controversial show. Other people do. So what makes it controversial?
What makes it controversial?
Yeah.
I'd have to say that it's probably because I think the biggest reason, at least for my generation, that watched Pam and Tommy was because there wasn't permission given. I know when I was like on social media and stuff like that, as soon as everybody found out like, oh, Pam and Tommy never actually gave like actual consent. Like they were aware that the show was happening, but it wasn't like they signed something or verbally came out saying we support this or whatever like that. Like it was completely made.
That being said, Tommy was the only one out of the two that was even approached with the idea. He never said not to do it, and now he's on tour.
No, apparently Pam was.
Oh, was she? Because the original story I heard was that she wasn't approached with it.
From what I understand, yeah, she actually was aware that it was supposed to be happening. Like, apparently Lily James, who plays Pamela, did reach out to her.
Yeah, but not the movie producers.
Not the movie producers.
The movie producers actually sat down and talked with Tommy.
No, only Sebastian Stan.
Oh, it was just the actors that did it?
Yeah, Sebastian Stan was the only one, and he reached out through Instagram, I believe, to talk to him. Because
that's how we do things now.
Yeah, and they chatted a little bit, but Tommy, from what I understand, Tommy never in that short conversation that they had still actually gave consent. It was more of just a generalized conversation.
Well, clearly Pam would have never given her consent, considering that she was already in talks to tell her side of the story and has been developing her show and her side of the story for a couple of years now. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like they scooped her in telling her own story.
Well, they did.
Yeah, okay, so it's not like they did. They actually did do that.
Did.
So there's no way she would have given permission to do that.
No, because I mean, she has been in talks for, what did they say, a couple of years now with Netflix.
And she said it was like 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, with Netflix to make a documentary, and I feel like Pam and Tommy, the show, happened so fast. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like over COVID, basically.
Yeah.
It was written, decided we were going to do this, and then it was just, okay, here we are, we're filming.
And it was not released on Netflix, note. Because that's who Pam has been talking to about her show.
Yeah, it was on Hulu and Disney.
And Disney Plus, yeah.
So.
But yet, we all still, how many people tuned in?
So many people.
Right? Even with all the controversy and everything like that, we still tuned in.
Yeah. But again, I think that comes with, like you said, your generation was like young adults / teenagers.
Yeah, we were being a little snoopy. Like, what don't we know about this? What don't we know about this?
Yeah, so I think, like, for your generation, it was kind of like, oh, we were alive and, like, young enough, but old enough at the same time to, like, be around when this was happening.
Yeah, we remember it, right?
Whereas, like, my generation, like, literally, it happened the year I was born.
And I think it's kind of, to me, part of the controversy, too, is that I don't know how they went out of their way to tell Pam's story for her and didn't address the domestic abuse.
Yeah, there was like such a short period of time at the very last episode where they kind of showed it.
Like, is this where they drew the line? They were like, oh, well, we're going to tell all of this other stuff that we weren't even there for, but we clearly know what happened. But we draw the line at actually highlighting the fact that, he beat the crap out of her.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you
but
draw the line?
I think it was because that wasn't their focus of the show. The whole focus was the sex tape, not...
I suppose, but I just don't know how you highlight their relationship and not bring that up. Because, like, honestly, until that incident, like, the main incident happened, a lot of people weren't even really paying attention to Pam and Tommy. Not even when they were a thing. Right? It was the photos and the domestic abuse. And they had an opportunity to address a hot topic. Right? But that's where they drew the line. They wanted the fluff and they wanted, to be able to make money off of it. And they wanted to be able to tell Pam's story for her. But they didn't want to tell a story that mattered.
Yeah. I feel like, though, the sex tape thing still... It was a story that mattered because there was a lot of violation from an outside power. Mm-hmm. Because granted, like, I understand that maybe he was kind of screwed over, but at the same time, that still doesn't give you the right to break into somebody's home and steal their private property.
Exactly. I mean, like, it was Tommy that was the asshole. I mean, honestly, he was the guy who didn't pay the bill because of whatever he was hopped up on at the moment that just made him think that was okay. And Pam wound up paying the most for it, and she didn't even know that incident had happened between Tommy and the contractor.
Well, yeah.
But as per usual, and I'm not going to go down this road very much, but as per usual, the woman is the one that gets dragged through the mud and winds up, having most of her reputation damaged because the guy is like, well, you saw it even in the show. Mm-hmm. Tommy's sitting in the bar and what's happening? Everybody's high-fiving him because, man, you get to do Pamela Anderson. Mm-hmm. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. I have to agree with that, I mean, they even say it in the show that she openly says, like, yes, you're in the video, but you're not in the video like I am.
Yeah.
And because even she recognized that for him, it wasn't going to be as big of a deal as it was for her.
No, exactly. And if it hadn't been for the fact that she put out that movie Barbed Wire, I would say that whole incident was what killed her career. But that movie contributed too. Well.
So I guess, like, another question would be, like, why do people feel, like, even if we know it's controversial and we know it's wrong, why do we still watch it?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with this little concept called groupthink. Mm-hmm. Okay, so just excuse me here. I was looking for some stuff related to this episode, and I came across a great Psychology Today article. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure when it was published, but it was called, let me see, Seeing by Starlight, Celebrity Obsession in Psychology Today. And here's a quote from it. "The brain simply doesn't realize that it's being fooled by TV and movies," says sociologist, and I am so sorry if you ever get to see this, and I have butchered your name. I hate not saying people's names right, but Satoshi Kanazawa, lecturer at the London School of Economics. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, it was impossible for someone to not know you if you knew them. And if they didn't kill you, then likely they were your friend. Well, we don't live in that era anymore. And I think this very much goes into that groupthink because it is impersonal now. We don't know these people. We know we look up to them. They're celebrities. And we love them, but we love to hate them. Mm-hmm. Right? We love to see when they get brought low because we always feel like they're above us. And so what happens now, and here's where groupthink comes in. So groupthink is basically when you have a group of people that lose all thought of logic, all vein of logical thought, mm-hmm. and just do something to go along with the rest of the crowd so that they don't look like they're in opposition or they don't get left out. Mm-hmm. how many times do we have shows that we want to watch and we tell everybody we're not going on social media till we watch that because we don't want any spoiler alerts because we know everybody else is going to be watching it.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's what happened with Pam and Tommy. They did very little marketing around it, but they didn't have to, because people were either curious to find out who they were, or they knew who they were and were like, oh, I wonder what other side of the story we're going to get. Right? And, well, we don't want to be the one of our friends who didn't see it, doesn't know what the storyline was, didn't go, So we lose all concept of what it could cost or what it could mean to Pam, what it could mean to Tommy for this can of worms to be reopened again. And a whole new generation that didn't even know they existed to now know, right? We lose all concept and all thought and all accountability in helping to promote this because of our curiosity and because we don't want to be the one person out of our people group, that didn't see the show.
I think there's also a small part of fandom that plays into that too.
Yes.
Because, I find that when there's, a certain actor that's in a movie, it doesn't, or show, whatever. It doesn't seem to matter what that show's about as long as that person's in it, they'll watch it.
Oh, yeah, and you've got the Sebastian Stan thing.
Yeah, because
I honestly didn't know this. What's her name? Lily?
Lily James.
Apparently I still don't know her that well.
She was in Downton Abbey.
Yes, which blows my mind because that was one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
And she was one of the main characters and I did not put it together.
But in all fairness, they completely altered her though in the show, right?
For sure.
So I don't really necessarily think if you're watching Downton Abbey and then you go and watch Pam and Tommy, you're gonna be like, oh look, Lily James, because it was two very.
And honestly, wasn't she Rose in Downton Abbey?
Lady Rose or something
Lady Rose,
like that.
yeah. So I would have never thought, Lily James anyway. I would have always been like, oh, that's Rose. But she does not look like that, so.
No.
Rose did not look like that.
No. She was much more covered, I feel like, in Downton Abbey.
Well, and she wasn't as endowed and curvy and all of those things. So, yeah.
Well, but that also comes down
or
to the
blonde.
fact... Yeah. Lily James in real life is not actually a blonde, so... She had to actually, just a funny side note, she actually had to bleach her eyebrows because her eyebrows are so thick and dark that even when they put prosthetic over it, you could still see.
Really?
So she had to...
they couldn't even, glue them and then put
No,
them...
they actually had to... She actually had to... So she walked around for, months with, bleached eyebrows and, dark brown hair color. And was walking around like that, and she was it was an awkward...
That's when, the big sunglasses.
yeah, literally, she was it was such an awkward... Because, if you looked really closely, you could tell, when she wasn't wearing, prosthetics, they were there, but they were, bleach blonde, because that was the only way that they could, get, everything to, look uniform.
I'm sorry, Lily, but that's funny.
It is funny. She thinks it's funny, too. She was laughing about it, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyways, so...
Sorry, business networking on the side. I shouldn't be doing that while we're filming, right?
So I guess another question is that kind of going back to it being wrong, why does it still get so much hype in the media?
Okay, well, I think that this is something that we all have seen for the last 10 years in media. PR. Media isn't reporting anymore. Media isn't, and I'm talking news, advertising's never been reporting, right? Stating the facts, but even though we have ethics from the CRTC and everything, the only thing the CRTC seems to be interested in is actually prohibiting people from being able to put out, I have a friend who owns a distillery. Mm-hmm. And they've got a show that streams on
Prime?
Prime, thank you. Jeez. Good time to have one of those moments. Anyway, and the CRTC has been blocking it because they're it's too salesy. You can do basically anything else, but don't be a small business, and try to and just try to have fun and put out a show.
Yeah.
it's nothing but PR spin these days. The shows, the rating, the reasons that they make the decisions. You know, even looking at the TikTok algorithm, how many people every day do we see on there complaining about the 12-year-olds twerking, but, you know, somebody doesn't even do anything and they can get, you know, their account banned for nudity, even though they're fully clothed in every video, right? So, and I think that's what it is. Like, media is more concerned with selling and with being on top and making money. So, and when you own the rights to everything that goes out, like, who stops you? Right? And then we, as that quote says, we see what's coming at us, and for some reason we've lost critical thought, and so we start taking everything at face value.
Yeah.
Because we don't think any deeper than that. You know, it came out that Pam and Tommy didn't give their permission.
But it didn't come out until like halfway through the season, basically.
Yeah, but did it affect the ratings? No. Because people were invested by that point in time. And plus, it's easy to just ignore that now, right? Because, well, they're telling the story. And we focus on their telling. But whose story are we telling? Yeah. You know, it's Pam and Tommy, you know, or the characters being portrayed on the screen are Pam and Tommy. But is it really their story that we're seeing? Pam and Tommy didn't give their permission, and they didn't have input into the storyline. And if some of the most critical parts of their story were deliberately left out, then whose story did we watch? But we just assume that because the people on the screen in front of us are portraying, or we've been told that they're portraying those characters, we just take it at face value. And everything else we lose concept of. Everything else doesn't matter. Did they give permission? Oh, well, it's okay. Is Pam sitting at home right now watching this show? You know, what emotions is she going through? What is this bringing up for her? What are the memories? What are, you know, all of these things? But we don't have to think about that stuff because, well, we're seeing her story on the screen. But are we really? Is it really her story?
Yeah, that's true. That's why I said, like, you know, like, obviously I'm guilty of it. I did watch the season all the way through till the end. But there was a lot of things that did definitely aggravate me. Like, obviously, it was a TV show. So it was very, I think, in some aspects, over dramatic, you know, to try and keep people engaged and intrigued and everything like
Hollywood
that.
Spin, right?
But the other thing was too is I'm really getting tired of Hollywood men specifically thinking that it's okay that they can tell women's stories. And then they tried to kind of like, now I don't know what the purpose was, but the first 3 episodes, from what I understand, were directed by a man or men. Sorry, there were multiple of them. But then the last 4 episodes or something like that were directed by women. And I'm like, to me, that doesn't matter. To me, I don't think it matters if you've got a man or a woman directing it. The simple fact of the matter is that there were people that came in and looked at that. And then there were 4 women that were approached before they were even filming that could have said, you know what, this is not okay. Yeah. We should not be doing that. And they still went along with it.
But at the same time, this show, going back to your original point, this show was written by
men,
presented by
men.
The actors didn't even have to audition. Those same men,
from what I understand, yeah, like
basically just reached out to them and said, "Hey, you're the person for this role." And let's face it, there's no way. I mean, as much as they went out of their way to try and make Sebastian Stan represent Tommy Lee, Sebastian Stan Stan would have to cut off 2 limbs to be able to ever be as thin as Tommy Lee ever was. Like, to actually look like that. He was a drug addict.
Well, and that was the thing, too, is, like, Sebastian Stan himself even said that no matter what he did, he still could not get his body.
Yeah, he didn't look...
And it's just... because naturally his body is obviously a different shape, right? Like, it's a different form.
Yeah.
So, despite the fact that he was fasting for 18 hours a day and doing nothing but running, he still could not achieve that same look.
Which tells me that the people behind this, for the most part, were really just interested in the glamour, the whatever, the hype, the credibility of the street cred, whatever. and the money they could make off of it. Because if they had have actually put it open to auditions, they would have probably... Christian Bale would have been way better person to play a character like Tommy Lee.
Yeah, because he's lost weight like that.
Well, and he actually, if you look at Christian Bale,
has a
right?
very similar
Exactly.
body type.
But hey, who's at the top of the game right now, and who do we know that we can convince to do
Sebastian
this?
Stan, like we just found out yesterday that he's already got another show dropping on Apple TV about a con man.
Right? Like, he's the hot topic now, right?
Yeah, he's had there was 355.
He's the Winter Soldier, he's this, he's that, he's, right? So it wasn't really about who would actually portray the role in the best way. It was like, who's going to give us the hype we need to sell this.
And he has a huge fandom right now.
He does. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm a Marvel fan as much as the next person.
And he's a great actor.
He's a good actor.
I mean, we watched Fresh.
Okay. That one, like, I was not a Sebastian fan before. Like, I mean, like, he was a good actor, he was everything, but he's not my fandom.
Yeah.
But that movie, Fresh, oh my word. I love that movie.
It was good. And
it was done so well, and it was actually fun and entertaining. And yes, I know he was a cannibal, and I shouldn't be using cannibal and fun in the same sentence, but, like, if you haven't watched it, you don't get it.
I actually found out he did an interview with Margot Robbie for that magazine the other day, and he actually said that there was a big reason why he looked so thin in that movie was because he was actually in the process of turning himself into Tommy Lee as he was filming Fresh.
Oh, really?
So he was starving himself and running while filming Fresh.
I didn't even notice that because, like, I'm not into him that way. I just loved the character, and I loved the development, like the storyline, and it was really well done.
But this goes to show you how fast Pam and Tommy happened, because he was already committed to doing Fresh when he was in Canada filming Fresh when he basically had a month. So while he's filming Fresh, he has like a month to get himself into Tommy and learn how to play the drums, because he was playing the drums in that show.
I don't believe you. I've watched that scene. He's not hitting the beat.
He's playing the drums. Anyways, so he's learning to play the drums. He's trying to lose weight, and basically, as soon as he was done filming in Canada, was off to LA to film Pam and Tommy.
Anyway, as you can tell, Sebastian Stan fandom is over there. It is not here. But this show is not about Sebastian Stan.
No, it's not. But I'm just saying, like,
so,
it was just
let's bring it back.
It was just a fact that, like, shows like how fast Pam and Tommy was made under the radar.
Well, that's just it, right? But we still watched it. As much as we're sitting here right now going like, these are all the things that was wrong with that show and the production and the viewership, we watched it.
Yeah.
We watched the whole thing. You watched it out of curiosity to find out who they were and blah, blah. And I watched it because...
Especially after you made the comment about the Eminem song that actually has, like, right at the very first verse...
A reference to it.
And I was like, no, it doesn't. And then I listened to the song, like, 2 days later and was like, holy crap.
Never unhear it.
Never unhear it. And now every time I listen to it, I'm like, there it is. Yeah. There it is.
But that just goes to show you, right? In the day that it happened... Mm-hmm. How big of a news story it was, how big of a deal it was. And now fast forward to today, and it's the one thing they didn't address. Yeah. Right, first of all. And second of all, didn't have any permission to address any of it. And third of all, they spun it. Their PR shtick was that they were... They wanted to tell it more from Pam's side of the story. They wanted to focus, highlight more on the female side of it. But then they went out of their way to make her look like an absolute ditz.
Yeah.
Right? Like everything, all of her movements were super rehearsed. All, and they portrayed her as this woman that just stays on the top and is always bubbly and everything. I don't know if you ever remember the Jetsons. Remember that character, Bubbles Blastoff? That's what they tried to make her look like. So yes, she was harmed in the making of this movie, but at the same time, she's a dumb blonde. And I don't for a second believe that that's what her real personality is, but that's how she was portrayed. And there's just so many things that were wrong about it. And yes, I'm ashamed that I watched it, but nonetheless, my viewership is in those numbers. Those people got paid off of me for that movie, for that series, whatever. I'm not proud of it,
No.
but my viewership is definitely in those numbers. But yeah, I sit back and I think about it after the fact, and the one thing that we as consumers have is the power of our pocketbook, right? If we didn't watch that show, they wouldn't have made the money off of it. We could have sent them a clear message that this kind of stuff is not okay.
Yeah, but we didn't.
But we didn't, right? And this is the thing. We get manipulated so heavy on a daily basis. And I'm sorry, but the statistics still ring true that women are more heavily targeted. Men, for every 10 hits that a woman takes with a marketing message, men only get 4.
Yeah.
Right? I'll cite that for you somewhere. I know I've heard that statistic. I'd have to look it up for you. But I do know, I'm in the marketing realms, we know that men only get 4 out of 10. Right? So it makes sense that they spun it, that they were trying to tell it from the female perspective. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if we had have just used our common sense, if we hadn't have bought into the groupthink, if we hadn't have bought into the PR spin, right? But now they have the message that as long as they just send the right message and manipulate, using the right language and everything like that, this stuff's okay. They can keep doing this.
Yeah.
Are we going to tune in if the next time?
Yeah, they said something about talking about a season 2, but to me, I think at that point in time, I don't think I would be tuning in. Despite the fact that, yes, I agree that there were a lot of important topics they could have gone more heavily into, but if they made a season 2, I don't think I would be...
Yeah.
I don't think I would be one of them to watch it.
And here's the thing, too. I want to just send out this disclaimer. I'm not talking about intelligence level here. There are some really, really smart people out there. But when it comes to media, marketing, what we're putting on our TV screens, we lose critical thought.
That's true.
We lose logic. We lose the sense of reason. For some reason, we're willing to just let these people, behind the scenes, whatever like that, put these images in front of us and tell us this is what it is. And for some reason, we are willing to just stop thinking about it and take that face value and justify everything that we're letting into our homes, into our minds, regardless of how that affects the people on the other side. And as I said in our intro video, I'm actually really, really happy that Pam has already been in talks to do her own show, and I'm really glad that she's not letting all of this stop her. Actually, I believe it's probably more of a catalyst to make sure that she gets that show and agreement into place with Netflix and getting her actual story and her actual side of everything out into the open. So yeah, I'm glad, because I can't imagine myself as a woman if I had have gone through that experience and now it's 20 some years later, and maybe I'm in the middle of discussing and negotiating, telling my side of that story and bringing it back to light, and then to have somebody else take it out from underneath me and tell it when they don't even know if it's accurate or not, and to have that all brought forward again, and have that power of telling my story taken out of my hands, and have all that. So I can't imagine what that felt like for her.
Yeah, no, I don't, and especially because there were only certain parts, and of course it was always the ridiculous parts that were taken out of Tommy's book. That they use. Yeah,
episode 2.
I think it's 25 minutes in or whatever like that. Yeah. It was the ridiculous things that they pulled out, and it's we could have lived without that. That wasn't a necessary thing for us to have. But I agree. I think everybody that watched Pam and Tommy when the Netflix special comes out should probably do their justice and go and watch it. And
well, just as many, if not more, people should tune in to actually see the real, at least from Pam's perspective, the real story.
Well, and especially because, like I said, like Tommy has never obviously come out with a film, but he does have his own book about his relationship.
And like I said,
with
now
Pam.
he's on tour.
And now he's on tour, or going on tour, or whatever.
Whatever, yeah. They're coming
and granted, from what I understand, in the book, because Pam and Tommy have actually been like on again, off again a couple of times.
Yeah.
Since the Pam and Tommy like incident. But I guess when his book came out, there is actually quite a few moments because he has memory loss, which granted it's gonna happen.
I wonder how.
When you're, hyped up on drugs and stuff like that. And I mean, like, I'm happy to hear that Tommy is clean and loves his bonsai trees and everything like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, everybody grows and can mature and can become a better person.
But apparently in the book, he actually had to communicate with Pam because there were so many holes that he couldn't remember when he was writing the book. So Pam actually and him kind of almost in a way wrote the book together, but like her name obviously didn't get put onto it because it was his. So I think we've got Tommy's side with his book, so having, I think, Pam be able to come out and just say, like, this is my side, this is what my perspective.
I just hope, my goal with this episode that we're doing right now is, I hope that people understand that, and we think about it, that this wasn't actually Pam or Tommy's story.
No.
This was some made-up version by a couple of guys who saw an opportunity to get some popularity and make some money.
And kind of pulled like bits and pieces
from
all over the place.
Because how do you go from, and if anybody out there is old enough to remember when the incident hit the news of the domestic abuse inside their relationship, how do you go from that kind of brutality, whether Tommy remembers doing these things or not.
Yeah.
Because, we understand he was a different person back then.
Yeah.
But that doesn't negate the fact that those incidents happened.
Of course.
So how do we go from what we know happened inside that relationship and the domestic abuse and the violence against Pam to this doting, supportive, encouraging husband figure that we saw in the show?
Well, and that, I think, was where some of the... I'm not saying that, like, there isn't a chance that he could have been doing that kind of stuff. But again, none of us were there.
How do we know?
We weren't there when the doors were closed, so we don't know, like, if he was or not. Or if he was to that extreme. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of holes. And again, it's because people were taking bits and pieces from media, from other sources that were maybe there... probably people that were around that time that maybe knew what was like going on, but they never, and of course they used Tommy's book,
that's where they got episode 2 from.
Yes, so obviously they pulled sources and then they kind of like filled holes.
Yeah, but the holes that they couldn't fill were Pam's side of the story. Because she never gave her side and never gave permission to have her side told. So there's just no way that they could have had that perspective.
No.
So you have to know, critical thinking wise, everything about Pam in there was either told from Tommy's perspective or was made up.
Yeah, well that's what I mean, right? It was all outward sources because Pam never gave her consent for the show, so why would she be giving her side of the story for something that she never gave consent for?
Now, I don't expect that we're going to, change the world and make everybody be smarter or think better or whatever. But hopefully, just mulling over some of the pieces that we've presented here, hopefully, we can... have these discussions. Mm-hmm. Hopefully some critical thought comes back, and hopefully the you viewers out there, thank you very much for tuning in. Maybe the next time a show like this comes along, we can all start asking these questions, and is this really what we want to support? Is this really what we want in our living rooms? Do we really want to be contributors to taking the power of personal story away from the people that were actually involved and that were actually affected by it.
Yeah.
We need to start thinking about this stuff. We have to stop just taking that media at face value. We are inundated every day, all day long, with messages. And for how many years have we had these scam phone calls and these people, and we still every day hear about somebody being taken advantage of by it.
Mm-hmm.
Why? The only explanation I have is because we've lost the ability for critical thought.
Mm-hmm.
We don't stop and question. Face value is exactly that, people. They say you can't judge a book by its cover, but that's how we live our lives. We need to stop. We need to stop. So if they do come out with a season 2 of Pam and Tommy, please, let's think about this. Let's take our viewership away. And when Pam actually releases her true side of the story from her perspective and what she went through,
Mm-hmm.
and let's give her back the power of her own personal story, and let's watch that instead.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I think as women, a good chunk of us have all been down a road of some form of abuse in some way or form. And I can't imagine like my story or your story or anything like that being told by somebody else. And not getting to tell your story first.
Yep.
So I agree. I think we definitely...
And for all the guys out there that are watching, they're going to be going like, oh, you know, like, look at them, all their women power, and they're only focused on the women, and men suffer this stuff too. Of course they do. Of course you do. We get it. We know that women are not the only people that others try to override and take their power. The only reason we're talking in these terms right now for this podcast is because we're talking about Pam and Tommy.
And it was focused on Pam.
And Pam was the only one, the female entity in this story was the only one who didn't actually share her perspective or give permission.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why we said, but, no buts. It's just an apology. It's just a disclaimer. We know women are not the only ones who suffer this.
Yes, obviously there are plenty of men, and sometimes it sucks too for men because they get kind of told to just suck it up because, you know.
Yeah, because they can't be.
Yeah, they can't be abused or
whatever. And so we get that those are out there. Maybe somewhere in another podcast, in another episode, we'll address that too, because men have been told for ages and ages to suck it up, that you can't be abused, that this stuff can't happen, and it's starting to get talked about a little bit more, but there's still a lot of stigma around it.
Oh, absolutely.
And
just
where does that come from?
But just like there's stigma around women too when it comes to abuse. Like there's stigma around both sides. That's the thing.
So either way, if nothing else, in closing off this podcast, in this episode, the next time that you're presented with something that just, is all being hyped up and that, take a deep breath and stop to think about it. If season 2 actually does come out, like I said, please, we've seen, I think, enough from the outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
Let's wait for the insider perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? And it is Pam's story, that will be coming out. So let's give the power back to her. And like I said, hopefully over the episodes and the time that we put into doing these and presenting, hopefully we can start to create some sort of a mind shift. And we start to become a little bit more cognizant again of actually thinking about what's being put in front of us and what we're willing to accept or not accept in our minds, in our homes, in our world.
Yeah. Alrighty, well, that would be the end of today's episode. We just talked about Pam and Tommy mostly because it was the most recent controversial thing that has come out. And we just felt that it was a very important topic to have.
But what's next? What's next week?
Next week.
If I could just, not have a stroke and actually.
Next week, we're going to kind of shift away from media. We're going to talk about the difference between propaganda and advertising.
Ah, yes.
Because surprisingly, from my research,
There's a difference.
There is a difference, but I'm very shocked as to how long both have actually been around for.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And that they do There's some crossover.
There can be some crossover depending on what you do, how you go about it, and so maybe we can kind of be a little bit of an eye opener for some people when it comes to marketing and propaganda and everything like that. So, but yeah, so next week we're going to talk about that, and then kind of go from there and see what goes on next.
Well, I'm sure we'll have another announcement for the next episode.
I'm sure we will too.
Or at the next episode.
At the next episode.
Or in the next episode or something.
Oh my word. Anyway.
It's been a week, people.
It has been a week. Brain fog and seasonal allergies have been at an all-time high this week.
And today I seem to be consistently having strokes. So.
Yes. Anyways, thank you guys for watching and tuning in.
Yeah.
We do stream everything on all major platforms, and our YouTube video does go up every Friday at 2 p.m. and the podcast gets released on Thursday at 2 p.m. So we can't wait for you guys to be able to listen. Give us your guys' feedback at Mad Women VA or Mad Women Media Inc. Sorry, Mad Women VA is the other side of the company. But give us your feedback there on Instagram. Let us know if there's any other topics that you guys would like us to talk about. Yeah, that's about it.
That's all I got.